Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA racing talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, as it turns out, I'm all alone in the studio, but that doesn't mean that we won't all be here. We will. You're going to hear from Matt. He's on location in a moment. John, of course, running things very capably on CRN Live and taking part in the chat there. Because we're going to be talking, let's see, NASCAR All-Star Race. Could give you an idea of where Matt is this weekend. Got changes in Formula One, both on and off the track, so we'll talk about that. We got Formula E. They're looking into the future, not just because they think that electric cars are the way of the future. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Got a Truck Series driver who's got a new sponsor and some other news regarding that particular driver as well. Indycar prepping, of course, for next weekend's Indy 500 and all the festivities that'll be involved there. We'll tell you a little bit about those. IndyCar is also working with Fox to change some race times, and we're going to tell you which races and why. That and much more coming up this week on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
A little bit of a different look on CRN Live on YouTube as, well, we've only got the picture rolling, you know? It's the way that it goes. We got a picture for Matt up, and I'm waiting for him to call in here, so he should be calling in live. He and a buddy of his were able to head on up to North Wilkesboro and check out all the action that was going on up there. See if I can get him on the line. That it? You there, Matt?
I'm here.
Hey, there we go. Cool. So you had the opportunity to go on up to North Wilkesboro Speedway and check out the action going on this weekend for All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, we arrived up here yesterday, I think around probably 3:30 or 4 o'clock Eastern.
Not too bad at all. Not too bad at all.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it here in just a couple of minutes. Quick rundown of some of the stuff that happened last weekend, where last Saturday NASCAR was in Kansas. Truck Series got the weekend off. When it came down to the final lap, seemed like the front runners were going to kind of turn this whole thing into bumper cars. Carson Hocevar, Lane Riggs getting together, Hocevar bouncing off the outside wall. But he was able to stay in the throttle and edged out Riggs at the checkered flag. Is this just the fact that the trucks are good enough, or Hocevar said, you know what, I'm either going to bring it home with a checkered flag or just carry the steering wheel back and the truck's going to be in a big clump like in the infield somewhere?
Yeah.
Pretty much one of those checkers or wreckers sort of thing?
Pretty much, yeah. You could say that. You could definitely say that.
Yep. Hocevar officially claims the win. Riggs second. This is at the line, by the way. William Byron third, so a couple of moonlighters there. Corey Heim, Gio Ruggiero, Stuart Friesen, Brandon Jones, Jake Garcia, Caden Honeycutt, and Grant Enfinger, I should say, round out the top 10. After the race and post-race inspection, the 34 of Riggs was ruled to be outside of the rules. He was disqualified, moved everybody up one spot, put Daniel Hemrick up into 10th. We talked about this on this DQ on Crossed Flags, which you can go check out now on CRN Live on YouTube. So if you want the details of why the 34 was disqualified, you can go there and check it out. So here's the thing, with a Cup Series Moonlighter being a winner, no new series winner. The standings remain with Corey Heim at 3 wins and single-time winners, including Chandler Smith, Daniel Hemrick, and Tyler Ankrum. Points-wise, you got Grant Enfinger, Ty Majeski, Jake Garcia, Caden Honeycutt. Lane Riggs is dropped down to 9th because of that, just inside the playoffs, but I mean just. Ben Rhodes fills it out. Rhodes has a 9-point lead over Stuart Friesen for that final playoff position. And still, at this point in time, man, I mean, between penalties, disqualifications, and all the stuff that we've seen in all 3 top series of NASCAR, Matt, we're still seeing a whole lot of movement within the standings. It's amazing how close these things actually are right now.
Yeah, and you're probably going to see a whole lot more moving, too, because there's been an awful lot of shifting and moving, like you said, going on the entire year so far. And we're not even a third of the way done. I
know. It's crazy. Sunday was time for the Cup Series out of Kansas, and it was, just like at Bristol a few weeks ago, the Kyle Larson show. Larson claimed the pole, proceeded to lead 221 of the 267 laps, gets the win, gets max points as he won both stages, got the win, claimed the race's fastest lap, 2. So, good grief. Larson bested Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, and Alex Bowman to fill out the top 5, 6 through 10. Josh Berry, Ryan Preece, Chris Buescher, Joey Logano, John Hunter Nemechek. So now we got Larson and Bell, each have 3 wins. 2 wins for Denny Hamlin. Your single-time winners, William Byron, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, and Josh Berry, all but locked into the playoffs. Those who were in on points, led by Chase Elliott, then Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. rounded out. Stenhouse has a slim 7-point lead over Ryan Preece for that final playoff spot. On-track activity did begin last night at North Wilkesboro. This is where qualifying for the All-Star race and the Pit Stop Challenge happened all at the same time. Kind of explain how they combined those two real quick and give us the winner of the Pit Stop Challenge and who's going to be sitting on the pole for the All-Star race.
Well, it was really, really neat to watch and see how it did. What they did is, for anybody that didn't get to watch it, what they did is all the cars, how they were lined up from practice, and they were not lined up by any specific order. They were grouped in by teams. It started out, the first cars that were lined up were the Hendrick cars, and it was Penske, 2311, Trackhouse, Spire, Front Row, and so forth. RCR was towards the back. Shocker. And then what they did is, by how the qualifying order was, they released them one by one, and they didn't. You came from your pit stall, you ran pit road speed all the way to the end of pit road, and then your official released you. You got your up to speed lap, one hot lap, when you started your second lap, you come off a 2, you got down to pit road speed. It was no hot pit road. Come in, and they had alternate boxes to where one crew would be ready over the other. Excuse me. And they would perform the pit stop. You'd go back out on pit road speed. You finish that lap, and then you'd have one final green lap, and then that's how your accumulated time was. And from the overall, and everybody, the first 18 cars were the open cars that went, and then the second 20 were the actual all-star cars.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a combined effort, and the overall winner ended up being the 71-car Spire pit crew, had the fastest total time.
Nice $100,000 bonus there. Yeah.
Yeah, they took on the $100,000 prize out of the open cars.
These guys, correct me if I'm wrong, they're trained by Hendrick, right?
Yes, I found out this was a Hendrick development crew from last year that got called up to do the full-time Spire deal. So they took home the $100,000. The pole car for the all-star pole winner, even though he won't be the actual the pole sitter, because the heat races are later on this afternoon. The 6-car, Brad Keselowski had the all-star pole, and the all-star open pole winner is Shane Van Gisbergen.
It's going to be interesting to see. And remember this whole situation when it comes to transferring in the top 2 finishers from tonight's All-Star Open will transfer into it, and then the fan vote will figure out who the third one is. If the winner of the fan vote happens to win or finish second, then they will go down to the second person in fan voting. If they finished first or second, then they go down to the third person, but they'll have a fan vote winner, and they will have, of course, the first 2 finishers from the All-Star Open moving to tomorrow's All-Star race. So yeah, it's going to be a busy weekend for you up there. You can have a good time.
Yeah, after watching the practice session yesterday of all the cars together, watching the open cars versus watching the actual All-Star cars, in regards to the open cars, I have a sneaky feeling that this may be the breakout party from a short track oval standpoint for Shane Van Gisbergen. I've got a sneaky feeling about that.
Well, he could use it. I mean, we know he's a road course ace, but he has certainly kept advancing on getting better on the oval track. So it's going to be interesting to watch. And you made a comment last night in the text messaging of the fact that, back in 2018 when you and I walked onto the grounds at Darlington, it just felt like history was smacking us in the face. You said you kind of got that same feeling when you got onto the grounds at North Wilkesboro.
I mean, yeah, when you walk through the gate and you see that mural still painted on the back of the one of the buildings up there, the old Winston Cup logo that's still on the wall up there, and you walking up the ramp, it's nothing but a ramp. You walk up the ramp, you got the visual of the old steel back chairs, the same buildings that have just been renovated and updated. You're just all you really can do when you stand up on top and you're looking at the track. You're going, you just
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yep. I got you.
And seeing 60, 65, 68 haulers in the infield. They got all the haulers in the infield. It's wild.
Well, that sounds like a road trip maybe soon for us. I'm just noting. And you said it the same too. So, yeah, might be right.
Oh, yeah. Field trip next year.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about what is happening this weekend, which actually started very early this morning. Formula E, their first race of a doubleheader weekend in Tokyo, Japan, running a street course of 18 turns, 1.6 miles long. Oliver Rowland claimed the pole. Max Gunther on the outside of the front row. Gunther got passed early by Eduardo Mortara, but then found the grip that he needed, got back around for second, and then started to methodically hunt Rowland down. On lap number 25 of the race, Gunther got the opening he needed, passed Rowland, and played brilliant defense over the last dozen laps. Claims the win, his first of the year. Rowland's relegated to second place. Rookie Taylor Barnard moves up to claim third. Man, that kid's having a good year. Sebastian Buemi, Dan Tickton round out the top five. Eduardo Mortara faded to sixth. Rest of your top 10, Antonio Felix da Costa, Jean-Eric Verne, Robin Freins, and Nick Cassidy. Roland continuing a dream season. He's got a commanding 133 to 73 point lead over Antonio Felix DaCosta. Taylor Barnard is up to third with 69. We're about, little past midway in their season, by the way. Pascal Wehrlein, 66. Nick DeVries has fifth lockdown with 52 points. As far as the team standings, Nissan takes over those team standings, jumps Tag Heuer Porsche 144 to 139. Heck, that could change when they race again this weekend. Then you got 99 for Mahindra. McLaren's got 85. DS Penske's got 80. Maserati's up to 71. Andretti's got 68. Envision with 53. Jaguar at 52. Cooper Kiro has 28. And Lola Yamaha sitting in the basement with 18. But again, they're still very young. We'll see what happens there. As far as the manufacturer standings, because of the number of teams running their vehicles and them having good year, it's Nissan. Has up to now 225 points with the results from early this morning, our time. 179 for Porsche. Stellantis with 136. Jaguar 129. Mahindra 119. And, well, then there's Lola. 20. All right, IndyCar's not racing. But they are getting into qualifying for the Indy 500, which, of course, that runs next weekend. Session started 11 a.m. Eastern and 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Fox Sports 1, and then they'll move to Fox for the final session of the day. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. By the way, our flagship radio station, they're going to be picking this up right after we get off the air. So you're going to basically go from CRN into Indy qualifications if you're listening on 95.1 The Mountain. If you're listening on CRN Live or watching on CRN Live on YouTube, sorry, we don't have the rights to do that. Just letting you know.
They're actually on a quick morning warm-up practice this morning already.
Are they?
Before qualifying.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Craftsman Truck Series, as you mentioned, you'll be there tonight. The Window World 250 at North Wilkesboro will be on Fox Sports 1, the NASCAR Racing Network. That's a 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time start. Sunday morning will start early. Race number 2 of the Tokyo E-Prix doubleheader weekend. Same course. CBS Sports covering it somehow. Don't know what network or anything. 2 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Central Time. I'm going to be studying the inside of my eyelids at that time anyway. Formula One taking center stage with the Made in Italy Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola, the 19-turn, 3.1-mile-long course. ESPN's got that race live, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. NHRA going to get into the action as well this weekend. Finals of the Gerber Collision and Glass Route 66 finals at Route 66 Raceway near Chicago, Illinois. While not televised live, the finals will begin at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Central Time. Airtime on Fox Sports 1, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time, basically to get down to the final rounds effectively. Final qualifications for IndyCar kick off on Fox, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. Following will be the NASCAR All-Star Open to figure out who will advance into the All-Star race. The Open will get rolling on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Central Time. As for the All-Star race itself, also on Fox Sports 1, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. And by the way, that will wrap up the Fox Sports portion of the Cup Series schedule beginning next weekend when the Cup Series goes to Charlotte to run the Coca-Cola 600. Spoiler alert, they'll be on Amazon Prime. IndyCar, by the way, set to practice 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Monday, Fox Sports 1. Friday, same time frame, Carb Day, final practice before race weekend. So lots of stuff going on when it comes to all of that. All right, so you're there throughout the whole thing. You'll be coming back on Monday, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully, all of this rain that I went through this morning, where basically it was better weather for a duck and a motorboat trying to drive over here. Hopefully, all that stuff will get through that area and out quickly, and all the racing will happen as scheduled.
Yes, it's been some really, really torrential rain and thunderstorms all night up here.
Oh yeah.
So there's going to be a completely green racetrack and probably a totally different race than what I was expecting to see today for the truck race.
Right.
And it's been a very, very lack of sleep night up here because it's been it's been some pretty loud thunderstorms.
Let me ask this, too. You had the chance to see up close, live, and in person the Cars Tour. Now, we don't generally cover the Cars Tour, but you got the chance to see it. Kind of give us an idea of what that looked like and how it came about.
It's definitely different, for sure, with the Cars Tour, with those lower horsepower engines that they run with a late model stocks division. And the 100-lapper they had last night, to which that Landon Lewis was the winner, led all 100 laps.
Okay.
In a KHI prepared car, KHI being Kevin Harvick Incorporated.
That'll do it.
That was crew chief last night by Rodney Childers. So they stunk up the show big time. It wasn't a bad. It being the first Cars Tour race I've seen. I know there's probably been a lot better races, but I mean overall it was not terrible. It was a good racing all the way out through the field. No tire changes, no fuel allowed or added. Burning E85 fuel. You can definitely tell they run E85 by the way the smell of the fuel is.
Right.
Overall, it was a pretty good race. I mean, it got hairy there for a little while. From the simple fact of they were trying to run on the rubber that the Cup cars had put down, and those Hoosiers that they were running really were not wearing hardly at all.
Okay.
They were pretty hard compound tire, and the Cup cars were laying down a pretty sizable amount of rubber all the way down the track, running multiple grooves. And outside of that, and a couple of pretty sizable pileups, and which thinned the field down in a hurry, it wasn't too bad of a race.
All right, very cool. Something we'll keep an eye on, most definitely. Let's go ahead and take a break here. When we come back, it is Indy 500 weekend. Plus, we didn't get quite the opportunity to finish up everything from last week. And remember, last week we were finally back after having taken 2 weeks off for racing here in Alabama, Speed Weeks as we call it, Talladega, and then Barber Motorsports Park. So we'll wrap up the stuff that we missed last week. And like I said, it'll begin with IndyCar. Plus, it makes sense. I mean, again, they're prepping for the Indy 500, one of the biggest races of the year. So let's get to it. That'll happen right after this.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
My apologies to Matt. I continue to do things the way that I always do them when he's in studio instead of by phone, and I have to alter things up when it comes to that stuff. So my apologies to you, Matt. That's inside stuff, pulling the curtain back. But I'll go ahead and throw myself onto my own sword here and live on the air. All right. Practice for the Indy 500. You were able to watch plenty of this. I didn't get the chance to watch as much as I would have liked over the week, just because scheduling concerns and, well, Fox Sports 1 is not something that I have easy access to. Things really weren't quite what we were kind of expecting when we started to talk about this hybrid system and what it added in. What it adds onto it is, when in full use, about 100 to 150 extra horsepower to these particular rides, but a combination of things apparently are hampering the 34 drivers. 33 make the field. We had some damp weather, so there's that. That kind of kept them from being able to just let loose. But maybe more importantly, we didn't think about necessarily all of the aspects of what this hybrid system does to these cars. Yeah, it adds power, but it also does some other stuff. Day one of practice, for example, 34 drivers, all of them participated. Actually, we'll talk about Wednesday. How's that? They had a couple of days. Practice session number 3. Fastest time set by Alex Palou. There's a shock. 227.546 miles per hour. Think about that. That's about 7 miles per hour slower than the pole sitting speed from just last year, when we didn't have the hybrid system, when we didn't have the extra 150 horsepower. And on top of that, the split from 1 to 34, huge. Alex Palou at the top, 227.546. At the bottom, Ed Carpenter, his third team ride, the number 33 entry, was last at 220.475. That's over 7 miles per hour slower than Alex Palou's fastest speed. For the record, we'll give it to you. Kyle Larson was 13th at 223.985. The drivers got to be were talked to, obviously, when they were, getting in and out of the cars and doing whatever it was by the guys at Fox Sports. What do we attribute this to? I mean, are they in full qualifying trim here? Are they in race trim? And why are we looking at something that is 7 miles per hour at best, slower than last year's pole sitting speed?
Well, up until yesterday, nobody really went into full-blown knockdown, drag-out qualifying mode.
Okay.
They didn't turn the engines. They didn't turn the boost all the way up until yesterday. There are the several cars that were able to make some sim qualifying runs with what horsepower level they had. They were anywhere from the 226, the high 225 to low 227. The top day practice speeds were in that wide of a range. Several of them were talking about and worrying about being issues because the hybrid system added about 125 more pounds to the car when you go and it's into the rear of the car on the drivetrain. When they were going into the corners, they were having to drive the car a little bit differently, because the weight of that hybrid system was upsetting the car and making the car really, really loose with understeer.
So it's not just the added weight; it is the balance has been pretty severely upset.
Yeah, the balance has been pretty upset for sure. It's threw everybody for a loop, and they just turned the wick up yesterday on the cars to full blast, and you started to see the speeds creep up, and they really haven't. Let me back up and say it this way. Just this morning, they just, in the morning session, which is sitting with 6 minutes left, is currently under yellow, they just now touched the speed that they were able to hit last year.
Hmm. Okay.
Nobody has cracked 234 until this morning.
Whoa.
And that being Felix Rosenquist.
Yeah. I don't know I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm wondering here if there is a way that this could be altered here as we go forward. And I know that they're working on the new chassis system to where they could kind of regain some of that balance in these cars, or is this just the way that this system is because of the way that the engine and the hybrid system connection have to be?
I think it's the way the hybrid system and the connection has to be to get that combination of the balance right.
So they're just going to have to deal with this as opposed to what they had last year.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have compared to last year to this year, if they would have had a better balance on how it was working with the car, I don't see any reason or question that best lap speed overall could not absolutely destroy 240. In this session this morning, there's only been, for a single best trap speed overall on the timing and scored, there's only been one car crack 240 on a trap speed at 240.004, and that's the top car of Felix Rosenquist. He is 6/10 quicker, 6/10 of a mile an hour quicker than Alex Palou.
Ooh, that says something right there. And like I said, right when we get done here, regardless of where you are, once we're done with the show, that's when everything will start when it comes to Indy 500 qualifying. And of course, Indy 500 is one of the crown jewels around the world when it comes to races. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking oval track, road course, street course, you name it, whatever it is. Indy 500 is one of the crown jewels. It's one of those races that if you're a race car driver, regardless of what it is that you specialize in, you'd love to have the chance to win it. But we've noted also IndyCar's kind of second seat at best to NASCAR on television, at least here in the United States. And when it comes to the rest of the world, they certainly sit behind Formula One, if not other series as well. Witness that, for example, again, one of the world's most famous races, one of the world's most prestigious races, has not been a sellout since 2016 when it was the 100th anniversary of that race. And this causes something of a domino effect, by the way. Should the Indy 500 not be a sellout, the Indianapolis television market can't watch the race live due to blackout rules. And I think that blackout rule extends to a 150 mile per hour radius. So it's not like you could just, drive down an interstate, 30, 40 miles and go check it out. It's like a 150 mile radius blackout. So if you didn't go to the race and you lived in the Indianapolis area, you didn't get to see it live, even though you could still hear it live on the radio. Apparently, that's going to change this year. Indy officials stated yesterday that tickets have sold on a pace that they'll be sold out in time for the blackout to be lifted. Indianapolis Motor Speedway President Doug Bowles said just yesterday morning, as we are live on Saturday, the 17th, quote, "We are within 4 digits in terms of tickets remaining. We wanted to get that out now so that the fans who were thinking about coming, you've only got a few hours really to get that done." That means less than 1,000 tickets remain. And for TV purposes, they need to be sold out by 24 hours before the scheduled race time for the race to be that blackout to be officially lifted. So if they're not already sold out and you were thinking about going, I would probably either get online or get on the phone right now and see if there are any tickets left. But that's 350,000 grandstand seats that are sold out, and that is an impressive number.
Yeah, that's something else.
So congratulations to them. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. There was a time when IndyCar was the most popular motorsport here in the United States. You got to go back to the 70s to do it. But Indianapolis Motor Speedway, when it is full, it is an amazing sight on television. I haven't been there live when it has been full. Yeah, I was there back in 2021 for the NASCAR IndyCar weekend. It wasn't a sellout. It was well attended, but it wasn't a sellout. 350,000 people in a place like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is an impressive vision on television, though. I have to say that.
For sure. For sure.
All right. So
No ifs, ands, or buts.
that brings us to IndyCar's deal with Fox. And that began this weekend. And this is where all the races are on the main network. And yes, it's paying off for the series. They have seen an uptick in their ratings from last year to this year. Their last year working with NBC, where, let's face it, not all the races got on NBC. They've also worked together to create a first for IndyCar on broadcast television. They're going to do a live race in prime time. This is part of some scheduling updates that IndyCar and Fox have been working on that got announced, that the Bommarito Automotive Group 500 that's going to happen at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway Sunday, June 15th, is going to be aired live on the Fox network in prime time. Again, Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time start. We've seen primetime races from the Cup Series, not necessarily on a Sunday night. We've seen Sunday evening into night. This is going to be definitely at night. This is St. Louis, middle of June. It's going to start to get hot, so that might not actually be the worst thing in the world when it comes to how comfortable the fans and the drivers get to feel when it comes to race time.
Yeah, that's for the Midwest and that time of the year. That's actually going to be really good.
Now,
for sure.
The interesting thing to me is that we have seen most of this try to be avoided, though. NASCAR, IndyCar, whatever series that it is, when they're racing on Sunday, they have basically talked about they don't like to run on Sunday evening because they know that the fans may have to go to work on Monday morning and they may have to travel to get to work. Wonder why they decided to change it up in this case. Instead of doing it on a Saturday night, they went ahead and just moved it later on a Sunday evening.
That's one of those things that has puzzled me from really any oval track series that has the ability to run a night race. I mean, you've even seen sometimes that situation with Cup, excuse me. Even with example with this one right here, this All-Star race. It used to be ran on Saturday night. And everybody had the off day on Sunday to where they could come watch it and see it. But it's been on Sunday for the longest time now. And sometimes that can hamper the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
This will now be the second All-Star race that I've been to that's been on a Sunday night.
Right.
I went to the one in Texas, and I went to Texas in 2021.
I remember that.
And then now on this one, I've been to four at Charlotte on Saturday night,
mm-hmm.
and those were good, and there were really good crowds up there too. So I don't know. Sometimes it's a head scratcher with how these races get moved based off of what TV wants and not what the series wants.
Yeah, I mean, congratulations to IndyCar to actually get a primetime show. I think it's great. But to do it on a Sunday night, you might be cutting off your nose to spite your face. You might get decent TV ratings out of it, but how's the attendance in the grandstands going to be? That's the big question at that point in time.
That is true. One thing I want to definitely say too, it's unfortunate for some of the people that live in that area of St. Louis, but I was really glad to see that Worldwide Tech Raceway got spared yesterday because one of those really strong tornadoes that went through St. Louis barely missed that facility yesterday. Yeah,
our thoughts and our prayers out to those who were affected by it, no doubt. 4 other races also had their start times adjusted. The race at Road Course America the next weekend, June 22nd, that's been moved up 2 hours. That's a 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time start. July 6th race at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course also moving up. It's going to start at 1 p.m. Eastern instead of 2 p.m. Eastern as previously scheduled. July 13th at Iowa, not both races at Iowa, just the July 13th Iowa Speedway race, also moving up from 2 p.m. Eastern start to a 1 p.m. Eastern start. And on July 20th, Streets of Toronto Indy Grand Prix, now is a noon Eastern time start instead of 2 p.m. as they previously slated. Now, why? Well, here's the why of it all. The switch to primetime is going to help avoid a conflict between IndyCar and NASCAR's inaugural Mexico City race for the Cup Series. We've noted who gets bigger ratings here in the United States of America. Heck, I just talked about it a moment ago. Even though that race is slated for Amazon Prime, and not everybody gets Amazon Prime because it's a streaming service, obviously, but it's also the first race in Mexico City, so there's a whole lot of hype about this. So they decided they weren't going to try and go head-to-head between IndyCar in St. Louis and the Cup Series in Mexico City, so they switched the times. In fact, all these changes really were made, despite the fact that Fox Sports doesn't carry the Cup Series at this point in time. All these changes were made between IndyCar and Fox to avoid a head-up, face-to-face meeting with the monster in the United States of motorsports, and that's the Cup Series. So not a bad move on their part. At least they get to a point where they have the stage pretty much to themselves. Now we'll have to wait and see what exactly the whole idea or the after effects of them going solely to a streaming service, which we'll get back to in the Cup Series a little bit later. We'll have to see what that does to the Cup Series and to their viewership.
Right.
All right. In addition, for the pre-race show, let's talk about their broadcasting team for the Indy 500. And NBC did this. ABC did it as well. You break out a whole bunch of people because you want to cover as many aspects of the Indy 500 as you possibly can. So Fox is expanding the broadcasting team. They're going to keep, obviously, their main crew. Will Buxton's your lead announcer, right alongside James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell in the booth. Jamie Little comes over. She'll do pit road reporting alongside Kevin Lee and Georgia Henneberry. They're going to be on pit road. Jack Harvey will be part of the broadcast. Now, here's the trick. Jack Harvey is also trying to qualify for the Indy 500. So one guy will be bumped out. Who, we don't know, obviously. I don't have a crystal ball sitting in front of me. That'll happen tomorrow as we air live. Should Jack Harvey make the race, he will be a commentator from the behind the wheel whenever he can. If he should not make the race, Fox will keep him on their broadcasting crew and just put him in another capacity. Exactly what that'll be, I don't know. In addition, they've got a pre-race show. Fox is bringing in Chris Myers, who usually is part of the Cup Series pre-race coverage. They'll have special segments from Tom Rinaldi and Jamie Little, who'll be interviewing personalities like Kyle Larson and Joseph Newgarden, among others. They're all going to be part of the festivities. But joining Myers on the pre-race show are going to be two people who are familiar to both NASCAR fans and IndyCar fans. Danica Patrick has got the highest finish for a woman in the Indy 500 in the race's history, and former IndyCar Rookie of the Year, then Series champion Tony Stewart. They're both going to be part of the pre-race activities here. And for those of you that are looking on CRN Live on YouTube now, as John gives us a picture of those, this is a picture that I provided to him. It was the best picture I could find of the two of them together, which is them doing, I believe it was the Coca-Cola Racing Family of Drivers commercial when they were both running in the Cup Series. That's the one I could find of them together. Couldn't find anything where they were together with Fox Sports equipment doing commentating or anything like that. But we've seen Danica Patrick do some stuff in for Sky Sports and Formula One, especially when they come to North America. Tony Stewart has done some stuff for Fox Sports when it comes to covering a couple of Cup Series races here or there, or even covering the NHRA. What do they bring, in your mind, from the driver's perspective, and these two are obviously drivers, what do they bring to this for Chris Myers in the pre-race show?
Well, first off, that's a heck of a combination for Chris Myers to have.
Sure.
With them two. Secondly, they'll give him the clear-cut visual of how it feels to run 230 plus off into turn 1 and turn 3 at Indy with your rectal hindsight sitting about 5 inches off the ground, how it feels.
Right.
They'll give him that true read of how it feels. From the other part, I don't know, because it may clash with those two.
Yeah, considering he had to fire her, you might be right. We'll see. It should be interesting to watch when all of this comes together. It is the Indy 500 after all, and it is the biggest race, arguably, of the year here in the United States, and again, one of the biggest in the world. When we come back, we'll continue talking IndyCar. The famed two-seater ride. We'll tell you who's driving, who's riding. We'll talk a little bit about the 2026 IndyCar schedule, because little bits are coming out about it. And there's also an IndyCar movie, so to speak, coming out. We'll talk about all that next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
We are indeed Matt by phone. He is out in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina to check out all of the action this weekend for the Cup Series. And as far as it goes, last night, Cars Tour as well. I'm Steve West. I'm in studio. Producer John is handling things quite capably on CRN Live on YouTube, and we're all part of that chat there, and we appreciate everybody who's checking us out there. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And we also thank everybody who's listening to us on the radio on 95.1 The Mountain in East Central Alabama. We appreciate y'all. Back to IndyCar news here, and I can't remember. Have you had the chance to do that two-seater IndyCar ride out at Barber?
I have not, no.
Okay, I got lucky enough to do it a couple of times, and it's a lot of fun, but it wasn't one of the top-level drivers that was running me around. It was, guys from the feeder series that were coming in and, taking some extra time to get some extra time on the track before they went to their regular series to go do it. Well, this time around, it's going to be a little different because we got two multiple-time champions who are actually going to be part of the noted two-seater ride that's going to take place before the Indy 500 this particular time around tomorrow, or next week, I should say. They're two 7-time champions, actually. 7-time Cup Series champion Jimmy Johnson's going to be behind the wheel of the two-seater at the Brickyard, riding with him in the back, and he's a tall guy kind of like I am, so I know he's going to have to really fold himself up. 7-time Super Bowl winner Tom Brady, who's now, of course, a Fox football color commentator, and this gets him on the ground. And again, that's that whole, hey, Fox is putting everybody that they possibly find that they have that's a Fox Sports commentator of whatever sport, and they're throwing him at the Indy 500. And Brady's the latest celebrity to take the ride. He follows the likes of Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, or, well, not Hall of Famer, Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod. Will he ever make the Hall of Fame? Nah, with the steroid thing, probably not. Singer Lady Gaga, actor, rapper Mark Wahlberg, singer John Bon Jovi. That's just a few of those people who have taken it. As for Johnson, while not quite to the level of, say, Kyle Larson, he's working up his own version of the double, because once he and Brady are done turning a couple of laps in the two-seater, Johnson will get on a plane. He'll head to Charlotte because he's slated to drive the Legacy MC number 84 in the Coca-Cola 600. And that, by the way, will mark Jimmy Johnson's 700th Cup Series start. So busy weekend not only for Kyle Larson, but for Jimmy Johnson as well. Let's see, where do we go next? How about the schedule next week? Kind of bits and pieces right now. Again, when are we going to get the full IndyCar schedule? We're still some weeks, if not months, away from that being finalized and released. What we do know is this so far, anyway. We know when it's going to begin. It will start again with the Firestone Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. That is set for the same basic time frame as it did earlier this year. It's going to be the final weekend of February, specifically kind of bridging over into March. It'll go February 27th through March 1st of the weekend, so the race itself will be on Sunday, March 1st. Second race of the year is going to be the new Grand Prix of Arlington. That's going to be set on March 13th through the 15th, so there'll be a week off in between there. And we also know the weekend of the 51st Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach. That is a race that has become a crown jewel of the IndyCar crown. That's slated to run the weekend of April 17th through the 19th. We also know, obviously, that Memorial Day weekend will be the Indy 500. So now we just have to start filling in gaps, because obviously 2 weeks before the Memorial Day weekend is going to be the Indy Grand Prix on the road course. The question now becomes, when we got to do this dance again between NASCAR and IndyCar to do Alabama Speed Weeks again, because they like in the spring to have Talladega and Barber back-to-back, whether it's Talladega first or whether it's Barber first. So now we just have to wait and see what exactly they figure out and how that works. So it could be that Barber, like it was this year, is the week before the Indy Grand Prix, or it could be the week after the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, again, depending on when the Cup Series decides to run the race out at Talladega. That's what we're waiting on, just to figure out the first, give or take, half of next year's IndyCar schedule.
Yeah, that's always the one puzzle piece right there for sure. And it's, honestly, I kind of hope it's before.
You'd rather see IndyCar before Talladega?
Yeah, I just kind of hope it does.
Okay.
Honestly.
And that's not a bad thing. It has happened. It is generally more common for them to put Talladega before Barber, but it's not unheard of for them to put Barber before Talladega. So we'll find out. And one more note here on IndyCar before we turn our attention to other series. Fox Sports Films, and there is such a thing as that. They're set to debut a brand new IndyCar documentary next weekend. It is entitled IndyCar Anything to Win. Set to air next Sunday, May the 18th, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time, basically after the Indy 500. Interviews are going to be taking place with both Mario and Marco Andretti. Got Scott Dixon and his boss, Chip Ganassi. Two-time defending Indy 500 champion Joseph Newgarden. We'll find out by that point in time whether he'll be a three-time or not. The captain, Roger Penske, who not only is a team owner, but the owner of Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series. Alex Palou, Pato O'Ward. There's going to be a whole lot more. Barry Nugent of Fox Sports said of this, quote, Fox Sports is always looking for stories that go beyond the finish line, and IndyCar Anything to Win brings IndyCar's biggest names and most unforgettable moments to life like never before. From kissing the bricks to the long walk from the garage and up to the grid, the film captures the heart of the sport and ignites the countdown to the first ever Indy 500 on Fox. Again, they say it's going to air next Sunday. I'm sorry, it's going to air tomorrow. My bad. I'm looking at the date. So it's actually tomorrow that it's going to air. So before we actually get into bump day, that's when it's going to air. My apologies. Next Sunday is actually the race. Tomorrow. So yeah, in between all of the qualifying and everything, you'll get this tomorrow as we air live, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time. Hey, dummy, look at a calendar. I'm a professional at broadcasting. Can't you tell? Anyway, so my apologies there. So yeah, pretty cool. But I do find it interesting. He notes the kissing the bricks. That's something that the Cup Series drivers started.
Yeah, Dale Jarrett.
I find it interesting that he brought that one to bear, but okay. Sure, it's become a tradition, but yeah, that's something that the Cup Series started. I wonder if that'll be mentioned. Find out.
I don't know. I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, we'll have to find out. All right, let's turn our attention to the other series we didn't get to last week. That's the guys over at Formula E. They announced recently that they have extended their deal with the organizers of the London E-Prix that's going to run through 2026 at least. The race will continue at the Excel Center. This is that one-of-a-kind indoor-outdoor course. This is only a one-year extension, however, unlike either, for example, last week we talked about how Formula One did long-term extensions for both the Miami and the Mexico races in Formula One. This is only a one-year deal, again, through 2026. But I say at least, because that just means they've got wiggle room to continue to talk about the future. Their scheduling, however, is a problem for at least one driver, and I say at least because Sebastian Buemi is just the latest guy to kind of talk about how he races not only in Formula E for points and championships, but he also races in the World Endurance Challenge Series. And this is a double duty that's led him to note that there are a number of conflicts on weekends where both series are racing on the same weekend, and he says that could hinder his chances of continuing on in Formula E. All right. Before we go any further, I want to break this down a little bit. Because Sebastian Buemi, we've talked about him on numerous occasions. He hasn't won a title that I can remember, but he's won races, and he's been a championship title contender. He's coming out, and he's now basically stating that of the two series, he feels like the World Endurance Challenge Series is more important. Am I the only one gathering that out of what he just said?
No, you're really not. I can sense that too.
I mean, this kind of, I'm not going to say it puts a knife into the back of the guys at Formula E, but if they're trying to put themselves up on a level, and yeah, we kind of did maybe a little prematurely. Again, we started covering this when the series was announced, and we did it basically as something of a curiosity this decade ago when the series got underway. And we just kind of kept going with it because it kind of just continued to get bigger and bigger. But now we have the actual participants in the series who are saying, yeah, I'm running another series, and I think that the other series might be more important because I would quit Formula E to go racing in the World Endurance Challenge Series? I mean, that's what I'm gathering. If I'm reading that wrong, by all means, correct me.
What it sounds like to me, too.
We'll see. These are two sides that have had scheduling battles really since about Formula E's third year. The clashes have hurt drivers like Buemi. Nick DeVries has talked about it. Jean-Eric Vergne set up Norman Nato, Stoffel Van Dorn. These are just a few. They've talked about having to skip a race in one or the other series. It didn't matter which. And if you do skip a race, and how many times have we talked about this? If you miss a points race, that means you claim 0 points, and that really does, if not eliminate your chance, it severely hampers your chance of claiming the title in that particular year. Formula E officials are claiming that clashes can't be avoided, but this is a race or a race series, for all intents and purposes, Formula E is, that races once a month. You can't tell me that you can't find some wiggle room in there some way, somehow. And I know you're working with race promoters and cities because you're doing a lot of inner city races here, but you can't tell me that you can't figure out a way to work that out. It seems against logic that you would have that difficult a time figuring out a way to go on an open weekend.
Yeah, it really does. You don't have just one race a month. You should be able to figure out those logistics a little bit better and a little bit easier.
So now we get to find out whether or not these drivers are going to actually say, you know what, yeah, I'm going to choose this series over that series. And I'm not going to sit here and say which one's which. I guess it's whatever feels more important to you as the driver, but it's going to be interesting to see who chooses what. Being a world traveling top rated, and both of these are World Endurance Challenge Series and Formula E are both under the auspices of the FIA directly. So both of them are world championship, FIA recognized world championships. To me, it's there are no lack of drivers who would be willing to step up and fill an empty seat, whether it is World Endurance Challenge or Formula E. So it's not like we can't fill the seat, but who are you getting? I mean, Sebastian Buemi has become a name that we have recognized here on this particular show for our listeners. Who are they getting? You're getting John Doe out of the middle of nowhere, and now we got to refamiliarize you with them. Sometimes that's a bit more difficult, you know?
Yeah, it is. No doubt, for sure.
All right.
We got a little bit of a developing situation in Indianapolis after practice this morning.
Okay.
Marcus Armstrong had a big crash in the morning session, and he is, as of 20 minutes ago when they interviewed their new IndyCar doctor, Dr. Julia Vaser, he's still under observation. He's awake and alert, but they're
good news there.
Still checking him out. So it makes me, with him still being checked out and evaluated, it makes me wonder if he may be dealing with a concussion style symptom, because he hit the wall a ton in turn one when the car just snapped and he just lost it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on with that, and if he may even get a chance to even qualify today if they get the backup car ready in time.
It's a good question. Keep an eye on it, obviously, and like I said, coverage will begin right after we're done here on this show. Formula E also looking ahead to the next generation of the racers, specifically the technology of the battery packs that power the 22 races, 22 entries each race. They're also looking ahead at the schedule, seeing where they might be able to improve things. Plenty has changed since this series debuted a decade ago, but there are two car-crazy countries that they're looking closer into, and that's China and, of course, right here in our own backyard, the United States. U.S. has been on the schedule each and every year since the inception of the series. In year one, they raced here twice, actually, Miami and then Long Beach. Then they raced in New York City. They've also raced in Portland before they head back to Miami just a few weeks ago. As for China, they've been there regularly, missed a couple of years due to COVID. Now they're back. FIA co-founder and chief officer Alberto Longo said that adding a second race to both the U.S. and China, with the idea that they could be finalized in time for the debut of the Generation 4 car in 2026. Longo talked to Racer.com at the Monaco E-Prix. He said this, quote, "I think we have two markets that we really want to go to very quickly in two races. Two races in two different locations, by the way. One's China, the other is the United States." So they're kind of taking a page out of Formula E here. If you've got a really big market that is car crazy and racing crazy, like the United States is, they want to get multiple races here. And that means if you're not going to do a doubleheader weekend in a Miami, a New York, a Portland, a Long Beach, whatever, that means that's an extra trip overseas from your base, which is in Europe, just like it is in Formula One. That's an extra trip overseas to come to North America.
Right.
Time will tell. We'll see. He continued on, Longo did, by saying this, quote, "I'm actively talking with 11 cities in the U.S. at this moment. Whether that's going to happen for next season or the season after, that's the question mark. But for sure, let's just say the Gen 4 car will be doing two races in the U.S. He did not elaborate on which cities might be in consideration. I would think Los Angeles is probably high up on their list, just to be real honest. I know they want to get back to New York once all that construction is done in the area where they had been racing. We'll figure it out. All right. Got to take another break here. Switch from hour one to hour two as our own version of Cross Flags hits the midway point. When we come back, we'll continue talking Formula E, but we've got some Craftsman Truck Series news, Cup Series news, and Formula One all to get to in hour number 2. And then we got to make sure that we're out on time because our radio affiliate is going to be going straight from us into today's round of IndyCar qualifying for next weekend's Indy 500. Busy day.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, welcome back in. We appreciate it. So we just got done. We're right in the middle of talking about Formula E. We just got done talking about how they're looking ahead to the Generation 4 car, which is coming up for 2026, 2027, somewhere in that area. They haven't figured out exactly when it's going to drop. And they're also talking about the schedule here, but the one thing that they got to figure out is how many teams are going to be part of it, because the NEOM McLaren team, they actually are in their final year of Formula E competition. They became the first team to announce that they're actually not going to continue into the upcoming 4th generation of the all-electric series, and with their efforts pretty much going on in Formula One and IndyCar, the recent announcement that they're going to be returning to the World Endurance Challenge series, they said, we're big, but we're not that big. Something's got to give. So they decided to give it up in Formula E. McLaren CEO Zach Brown said, quote, "The time is right to explore other opportunities that more closely align with our overall strategic direction, including entry into the FIA World Endurance Championship. For now, we're focused on setting this great team up for future success. It's easy for me to say, by working towards securing a new owner." So basically what they want to do is they want to sell off their Formula E operation to somebody else. Don't know who. And Formula E officials are saying basically that with that particular part of the announcement, they're hopeful there might be some wiggle room, that maybe McLaren will continue on into next year, which should be the final year of the current generation of racer and battery tech for the series. Again, as I noted this, McLaren's the first to announce they wouldn't be back. Porsche is back, as is Nissan, Jaguar, Stellantis Group, and Lola Yamaha. All have said that they're going to continue on into the next generation. But some people kind of wondering if this meant this is part of an exodus, if you will. Not really if you're asking the fine folks at the top of Formula E. The aforementioned Alberto Longo seems to think that the future's much brighter than that. He says with the Gen 4 cars to come, it's looking like their F1 cousins, that they're about to get bigger as far as the size of the car. Not quite the size of an F1 car. They're also going to make their cars look more like their Formula 1 cousins. And as far as the teams, again, 5 of the 6 are returning. Only Mahindra has not committed at this time. Stellantis has their 2 teams, Maserati and DS. And while they have committed to continuing, it's not known if both brands, by the way, DS is a European-only brand, if they're going to continue or if they're just going to drop down to one brand. But Longo said this, quote, "We have 5 manufacturers in the championship, dealing with another 2 that could potentially get into Gen 4 as well. Obviously, we have a limitation in terms of participants in a race, and that is like Formula 1, 12 teams in all, which each team provides 2 cars, so that means their limit is 24. They're at 22 now. He says, though, but I believe that in Gen 4, we're actually going to get to that magic figure. So he feels like, number one, Stellantis is going to keep with both of their brands, DS and Maserati. They'll not only find a replacement for McLaren, but they'll add another operation. Now, again, you got a turnkey operation if you're, and I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm not saying that either one of these are thinking about getting involved, but let's just throw it out there that it's GM and or Ford. One of them can right now call up McLaren and they got a turnkey operation. All you got to do is pick up where they left off.
Right.
So that's not a bad deal. On the other hand, that last team, they pretty much have to start from scratch. They got to build it up from the ground up. At least
it's something.
Yeah, at least that's what I'm gathering. So, I don't know. Time will tell. We'll keep you updated on it. And also, if you like the documentary series that are on Netflix, like the F1 Drive to Survive or NASCAR Full Speed, also on Netflix, or maybe you like them both. I do. I watched them both. Matt, you've watched them both. I like them both because they're not quite the same thing. They have the same basic idea, but whereas each of the 10 episodes on F1 Drive to Survive seems to kind of concentrate on one team per, you kind of get to know the drivers a little better when it comes to NASCAR Full Speed.
Right.
And by the way, that actually debuted while we were doing PA duties at NASCAR Full Speed. It might be interested to know Formula E didn't want to be left out. They got their own now. It is on Amazon Prime. It's entitled Driver. It's a four-part series. It dropped officially on May the 2nd. It's produced by a company called Astronaut Films. While it's kind of along the same lines as the F1 and NASCAR series, according to critics' reviews, it managed to avoid being an outright copy of either or both. The series focuses mainly on 4 drivers: Mitch Evans, and you can see this if you're checking out CRN Live on YouTube right now. Mitch Evans, Jake Dennis, Antonio Felix da Costa, and Dan Ticktum. It sees them not only at the racetrack, but you kind of get to know a little bit about their home life, whether they're single, married, seeing somebody, somewhere in between, whatever. I found it a bit on the fascinating side, truth be told, even though, again, I'm not the biggest Formula E fan. Again, for me, it's still more that curiosity than anything else to get to know the drivers. And this is the important part here. And this is something that what NASCAR Full Speed is doing and doing right. We're getting back into finding out about the people. We're not just seeing a helmet behind the wheel. We're actually getting to know these drivers a little bit. And that gives us, as a fan, as a viewer, as a listener, it gives us a little bit more of an idea of what the person is like and whether or not we want to root for him, as opposed to just going, well, it's a great car number, or I like the team, or I like the sponsor, so therefore I'm going to go for them. We actually get to know the driver.
Right. In which that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That you can see behind that curtain.
You and I talked about this a little bit on Cross Flags recently, in the fact that you got to go back, if you go back 20, 25 years, we got to the point where we got to know these drivers through their commercials because of their sponsors. What can Brown do for you? And you see Dale Jarrett driving a UPS truck on a racetrack. All the commercials that Jimmy Johnson did for Lowe's, Tony Stewart did for Home Depot, Jeff Gordon was doing for Pepsi. I mean, heck, he did a commercial with Cindy Crawford, for crying out loud. You want to talk about not just a little jealous. These drivers don't do that. These days, we're not seeing that. The last time I remember seeing a current driver show up in their sponsor's ad was when Tony Stewart was still part owner of Stewart Haas Racing, and he and Chase Briscoe showed up with the 14 car in a Mahindra ad.
Right.
And that was an outlier.
Yeah.
We're just not getting that personality anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent one that I've seen with driver in the commercial is Ross Chastain in a Busch commercial recently this year.
That's true, but that was a one-off.
Yeah.
That was a one-off Super Bowl ad. There needs to be more. There needs to be a lot more, truth be told. I mean, you're going to spend multiple millions of dollars. Again, this is regardless of series, whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, Formula E, the NHRA. To me, if you're going to be that company that's going to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to sponsor these cars, use those people who are behind the wheel of those cars in your commercials. Let's add a little bit more value to that sponsorship.
Right. I agree.
All right.
I totally agree.
All right, here comes producer John's favorite driver, Tony Breidinger, as we turn our attention to the Truck Series. Breidinger might not yeah, I know. Breidinger may not be burning up the tracks necessarily in the Truck Series, but she is attracting sponsors that previously had ignored NASCAR, and one of those happens to belong to a Kardashian of all things. Take that for what it's worth. Kendall Jenner has a brand out there called 818 or 818 Tequila, and they have signed on as a partner with Tony Breidinger. Jenner said, quote, Tony is a force both on the track and on social media. We're so excited for her and to be our first national sports partnership. Now, of all the things that we can say about Tony Breidinger, and I said this last year, I felt like, and it turned out to be true, when we did our 2024 predictions, the outlandish predictions, if you will, just throw it up against the wall, see if it sticks. I said Tony Breidinger on the track would outperform the lady who is now running in the Indy Next Series, Hailie Deegan. Obviously, she was out of the car midway through the year, and now she's an open wheel, so Tony Breidinger did. But it also goes to say that, unfortunately, Tony Breidinger is not going out there competing for wins each and every week. That's being polite.
How do I word this?
She's a great self-promoter, though.
Without getting canceled.
Good luck. While you figure that out, she is great at being able to promote herself. She does a fantastic job of that, and I got to give credit to anybody who can keep their name out there like she does, and she does a fantastic job of it. I mean, think about it. She's currently 23rd in the Truck Series standings. Her best finish of the year came at Rockingham, where she placed 18th. Her best career finish came in her very first race. That was at Kansas, where she came home 15th. By the way, the first time on the truck for the 818 Tequila brand is going to be at Nashville Superspeedway. But for the second year in a row, while you're still working this up, and John's going to start doing these in kind of a rotation, so if, females, sorry, but this is a typical guy thing. For the second year in a row, Breidinger took part in the annual Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. We've got a few of those pictures, not all of them, that are going to be kind of in a rotation here during this report on CRN Live on YouTube. Again, that's part of the whole thought of her being able to do a great job of self-promoting. She's getting herself out there in the public. She's becoming familiar to the fans, even though she's not necessarily winning races or even claiming top tens. We know her face and a lot of the rest of her body. And we get to be able to put that face to the name, kind of like what we were talking about just a moment ago when it came to putting yourself into commercials and being out there in the media to put a face to the name. It's not just a helmet behind the wheel. She's doing a great job of that. That you can't argue.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Toyota openly admit that she was put in that truck for her ability to be an influencer.
Yeah.
And they use the term influencer.
Yeah.
Toyota's got to rethink their priorities. I'm sorry, but they got to rethink their priorities, because we don't put people in vehicles to drive for their ability to be an influencer.
We didn't used to.
You were put in a vehicle for your ability to be a driver. Okay?
That's the way it used to be, yeah.
Now, the way it still should be.
I don't disagree. Don't get me wrong.
But in a comparison to current moment, let's word it this way, to current moment, I don't think it's a fair way to assess between what she's done this year versus what Hailie Deegan's done, because Hailie Deegan's only had 3 races total. Breidinger is going on, I think, 7 or 8, maybe 9.
Yeah, I was trying to remember how many they've run so far this year. Not quite the number that the Cup Series has, but yeah, they're up there.
It's at least double what Deegan's run.
Sure, yeah. And, you know,
I don't think that's quite a fair assessment yet.
No.
But they're right there neck and neck.
I would agree. You know, Hailie Deegan's got some work to do, obviously, but the lack of the number of races that they have run so far in Indy Next has not really allowed her to get as familiar with that car as Tony Breidinger has been able to do when it comes to the trucks.
Right, and don't get me wrong, she's bringing in that sponsorship. She's bringing in that new money, new sponsorship, and bringing that money into the series and the sport.
Yeah,
for sure. It's definitely some different brands, because you know this tequila brand with all people Kardashian / Jenner,
right?
Whatever you want to call it. I mean, last year she brought in Victoria's Secret.
Yeah.
She brought in. She's brought in, you know, Cane's Chicken Fingers brand, which they are blowing up.
Yeah, they are.
It's definitely been different with her for sure.
Yeah. You know, being able to kind of raise the profile of NASCAR for potential sponsors, that's a good thing. Really would like to see that translate, though, into her performance on the track. And here's the thing. I can say that about Tony Breidinger. I can say that about Hailie Deegan. I can say it about both of them. And I know that there are a lot of people out there, a lot of pundits who are very, very big on the idea of having a successful female in racing, whatever the series might be. In the end, while yes, they do bring sponsorship, and sponsorship that we haven't necessarily seen before, we still got to see the end result. And the end result is, where are you on the scoring tower when the race hits the checkered flag? That's the key.
And I'm going to say it this way, to where I see it to this point going to. Let me word it that way. I think it's now getting to the point to where some people and some teams, they honestly don't care about the result. They only care about how big the check is you're bringing.
And that's probably true too.
I hate to say it that way, but it's looking like that more and more and more.
Yeah.
And more and more.
No, I can't argue with you there. Honestly, I can't. One more note in the truck series here, and then we'll take a break. BJ McLeod. BJ McLeod is actually about to get probably one of the better, if not the best ride he has ever had in the top level of NASCAR. He is slated next weekend to go and run the North Carolina Education Lottery 200 Craftsman Truck Series race at Charlotte Motor Speedway for Spire Motorsports, with his primary sponsor being Pigeon Forge Coaster. That's an interesting sponsor. Is this BJ McLeod came up through the ranks, and he was a winner at all of the ranks that he built up to, and that's why he got into legitimately NASCAR Top Series. But is this the best ride that he has had so far in his NASCAR career, or am I missing one somewhere?
You're not missing one.
Okay.
That I can recall.
Yeah.
You're not missing one, because he's he's got his own cup car
Sure.
that he drives.
Yeah.
But from an overall equipment standpoint, let's word it that way, this is hands down his best one, no doubt.
Be interesting to see what he does with it.
An interesting tidbit about the sponsor that he's got, the Pigeon Forge Racing Coaster. That's something that I'm pretty sure that it's with some of that Spire money that he got for that charter, his car. Him and his wife Jessica are building that coaster in Pigeon Forge.
Ah, so it's close to his heart. I see. Okay.
They're building it.
Very good. All right. Let's get into the Cup Series here after we take this break. Major penalty handed down, and the saga on this one is not over, by the way, because the team in question, they're mulling over an appeal. We'll tell you what the penalty is, why they're mulling it over, and how long do they have before they make their announcement as far as when to do it. Plus, we'll also talk about stuff when it comes to this weekend's All-Star race and gearing up for the Coca-Cola 600 next weekend.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. tires only. And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
We're back, and we're talking Cup Series now, and another major penalty got handed out. And this was handed out on Thursday. And, Matt, this is a bit unusual. Usually we see penalties handed out Tuesday, maybe Wednesday at the latest, but here's the reason why. It came late in the week following an 8th-place finish at Kansas for the 17 team. His car was one of those selected to go to NASCAR's R&D Center for further inspection. I guess they just kind of finally got around to it. The official said they discovered a problem with the bumper on the front of the Ford Mustang Dark Horse. Cup Series Managing Director Brad Moran was on the Hauler Talk podcast this week and said that they determined that the bracing behind the bumper exceeded a maximum of 2 inches of reinforcement that the book allows, prompting them to dock driver Chris Buescher 60 points and 5 playoff points. The owner, RFK Racing, 60 owner and 5 owner playoff points, and the suspension of crew chief Scott Graves for 2 races. Before we talk about the aftermath of this, let's talk about this bracing. Because you and I have talked about bumper braces before a long time ago, and apparently there was a lot more leeway back in the past, because at short tracks and at the Talladegas and Daytonas, you tended to build up your bracing a lot more because of the bumping and the beating and the banging, or the bump drafting, if you will. Whereas if you were at a 1.5-mile track, you might drop it and move that weight to some other place at, say, an intermediate Darlington or 1.5 mile or even 2-mile track like Michigan. Now, apparently, you can only go up to so much. What's the reasoning here, I guess, might be the question of why it is limited 2 inches.
Well, and the genius Brad Moran's way he worded it, as you said right there, how do you decide that it's that much? Or you got to determine that it's that much by measurement, not decide that it's that much.
Yeah.
Which, that's a really, really, really genius way to word it there. And hence the sarcasm.
Sure.
But it would really be not right of me to say, because I would have to look at how the CAD file is drawn up and how they put to where this bracing can be positioned to be able for me to see why they do it with the limitations, if you follow what I'm saying.
I do.
I'd have to look at the diagram in the CAD file to be able to determine that and know that reason and why. But yes, in the old days, which seems like ages ago, but not that far ago, you can, brace up the bumpers how you need to in the position where you need to, depending on where you run at.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I would have to look at the CAD file.
Gotcha. Team issued a statement, said that they were weighing their options when it came to regarding an appeal. What they have done is already, according to their statement, have decided to have their crew chief, Scott Graves, begin serving his 2-race suspension. So he's going to miss at least this weekend's All-Star race. He's going to be replaced, by the way, for Doug Randolph for this weekend, and depending on what exactly happens, maybe next weekend of the Coca-Cola 600 as well. By the way, just to let you know, and the full statement, by the way, is up on CRN Live on YouTube. For those of you that want to know how long of a window they've got if they decide to make an appeal to file it, they actually can go through the weekend and debate this. They have, according to all reports that I have seen, they have until the close of business on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, effectively, to file that appeal. Now, here comes the question for me. So Scott Graves is already going and starting to serve his suspension. What are the chances that they expedite the hearing and have it done before the Coca-Cola 600?
That possibility does exist. I would say it's a 50-50 shot.
And that's only because they're in Charlotte, isn't it?
Correct.
I mean, that's the only thing that I can think.
I mean, literally, RFK is across the street from the R&D Center.
Yeah. And I'm sure that they could, work up a motorsports appeal panel of 3 judges somewhere in and around the Charlotte area on a fairly quick note. So I guess it would be up to NASCAR?
Yeah. I mean, I'm up here. If anybody's listening, I'll run down to Concord.
Matt Nicholson, judge. I like it. All right. A racer's a racer, and we've heard this about several drivers in any number of series, but regardless of what you may think of him, Kyle Larson might exemplify it better than anybody right now. Kyle Larson set to run the double next weekend. We've talked about that. He's involved in a lot of the practices this week. This weekend's going to be interesting, by the way. As noted in the schedule, IndyCar begins quals today, the Fast Six bump day tomorrow, all while NASCAR is at North Wilkesboro Speedway for the All-Star Weekend. What are they doing with the 5-car? I know that he is not going to be there. He wasn't there last night for the pit stop challenge and the qualifying. He won't be there in time to do anything today. And not that there's much that the Cup Series is doing today, so we won't be there for anything that happens today. Who's behind the wheel of the 5-car?
The 5-car will not be running the heat races tonight. They are electing to start in the back.
Which they were going to do anyway because of a driver change.
Justin Allgaier practiced and qualified the car yesterday.
Okay. And I would presume, in case something goes sideways, let's just put it that way, that he's the guy that's on standby in case Kyle Larson can't make it for the race tomorrow? Or what's the story there?
He should be able to make it for the race tomorrow pretty easy. Because, well, one, he was able to make it last year, even after getting into the Fast Six.
Yeah.
He was able to get down here for the start of the race.
Okay.
To which they delayed it for just a little bit.
Just to make sure.
Let him get here and get in the car.
I got you.
Yeah, just to make sure. But with the way that car in Indianapolis has had speed, I mean, not just his car, but all the McLaren cars, I don't foresee him making the Fast Six. So I think he'll be here on time.
Okay. Larson said that after his win last weekend at Kansas, he was turning his attention to the Indy 500. Oh, but wait. There was a sprint car race that he ran on Monday in Kokomo, Indiana, before he went to the Brickyard. I don't know how he did. Again, a racer's racer. Again, just in case a stand-in is needed, we've noted this. Tony Kanaan is slated to take over if he's needed to finish out the Indy 500 because, again, the rule states after last year's situation where he didn't quite make it there, that he has to be in the car for the Coca-Cola 600. So Tony Kanaan's there. By the way, just for the record, the 50-year-old Tony Kanaan passed the Veterans Indy 500 test. Not that we were thinking he wouldn't. As you noted, Allgaier filled in for Larson to practice and qualify the car. Again, on just the whacked-out offhand chance that something goes sideways, I am assuming Justin Allgaier would drive the car during the All-Star, or at least start the All-Star race tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'd probably start.
All right. We also noted in this week's crossed flag, so we're not going to dive into this big or anything, but we are going to show you the car just because we can. One driver eligible for the All-Star race that has no Cup ride this year is Harrison Burton. Burton drove for the Wood Brothers last year, but it was announced he was going to be out of the 21 car at the end of the year in favor of Josh Berry. He then turned around and won Daytona last summer. Find out all the details on Harrison Burton's All-Star run by checking out the latest cross flags, but you can see the car right now on CRN Live on YouTube, that number 51 for Rick Ware Racing. Good luck. Sports Business Journal's reporting that next weekend, when Amazon Prime takes over coverage of the Cup Series, just because you happen to pay a monthly or an annual fee for streaming, you're still going to get commercial content. It helps the service defray the cost of their contract with NASCAR, even though it is only 5 races. Now, here's the good news. For those of you that, like me, will be watching on Amazon, is that they state that their advertising inventory, number one, is, quote, nearly sold out, unquote, across the 5 races. Amazon's U.S. head of video and live sports, her name is Danielle Carney. She said, quote, we're excited about that strong interest again in driving new advertisers. We have a new format. They noted that unlike networks like NBC or Fox or, well, even Discovery, which, you know, that's where we're going to get the TBS TNT look here after Fox ends their 5-race run, Amazon doesn't have to stop and let local affiliates run. And I include the cable networks because even on cable, there is a local cable service commercial availability. And when those local commercials happen, that takes up the entire screen. So even if Fox or NBC or even if the network does a double box where you see the race in one box and the commercials in the other, when they go local, all that's gone. but they have to do it by contract. Well, Amazon doesn't. They haven't got a local affiliate. It's just them. So they're going to do double box, race in one box, commercials in the other. You won't miss one single second of anything that happens on the track. As to whether or not they get the chance to or to comment on it in a timely fashion, that's on Amazon Prime. I don't know whether they'll break into the commercial break or not. We'll find out. Let's see. One other note here of Cup Series situation, and just being behind the wheel apparently is not enough for one Catherine Legg. Legg is now a published children's book author. Legg recently showed off the book entitled Cat's Magic Helmet. It's available right now, speaking of Amazon, for $19.99. And it's going to be at select book retailers. It might actually already be there. The book, she says, is kind of based upon her own start in racing, so it's semi-autobiographical. It's about a young girl gets into karting, urges children, girls especially, to push past their fears, trust their instincts, and go for what they love. In the book, the girl in the book, Kat, K-A-T, like I said, semi-autobiographical, is 9 years old, and when she gets nervous about racing in the kart up against the boys, her father comes in and hands her a quote-unquote magic helmet. And this sparks the courageous instincts of the said young girl, who then goes out and competes and wins, only to find out later that it really wasn't the helmet itself. Spoiler alert. It was her. It's a children's book. What do you want? Legg said of the book, quote, "I know firsthand how it feels to be an outsider, having often been the only girl competing against the boys. This book is for every kid who ever felt unsure or left out. I want them to know that they're not alone and that they absolutely belong." Legg co-authored the book with a gentleman by the name of Andy Amendola. It was illustrated by a lady by the name of Ashley Maurer, who met Legg as a teenager. She's also Legg's helmet designer for all of her racing activities, whether it's IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, doesn't matter. So you can see the picture right there. It's pretty cool, actually, to have a children's book that's a little bit about racing, because we don't often talk about that. You hear about children's books about all different kinds of things, but to have a children's book that actually includes racing, I got to say congratulations to Catherine Legg on doing that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, we're going to take an early break here because this means we get to do the opportunity of switching our attention.
You already know Sylacauga Marine and ATV is...
fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
My apologies. I didn't quite set up the log the way that it was supposed to be set because I was doing everything. Matt's in North Wilkesboro playing around. I blame it on you, Matt. I really do. Producer John on CRN Live on YouTube. Appreciate him and appreciate you listening and or viewing on CRN Live. We appreciate you. As we turn our attention over here to Formula One here, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and warn you, we are going to do a Fantasy League update, so have that prepared. Scuderia Ferrari. You don't hear about this very often, but they got fined because they were playing around, apparently, and this was a no-no. During the practice yesterday, the very first practice session, they got caught. Officials watching over the team's activity in the paddock noted that they were adjusting the tire pressure on the car, so they brought them before race stewards to confirm the infraction, and they levied the fine. Now, Pirelli, who is the official tire provider for Formula One, has worked apparently with Formula One and the FIA, and they set very strict rules regarding tire pressure and temperature for their race tires during practices, qualifying, and such. The FIA released a statement that read, quote, "The team representative admitted that these procedures were not followed, which is a breach of Article 30.5, subsection A of the FIA Formula One sporting regulations. The stewards note that this was during a free practice session and in accordance with similar operational tire infringements in the past." Man, tell me these guys aren't politicians in some other life. The stewards issue a fine of 5,000 euros. That's about $4,200 US, give or take, somewhere in that area. So it's not a massive fine, but this is that slap on the wrist that says, hey, Ferrari, and by the way, fair warning to all the other teams that are on the grid, stop messing with the tire pressure during practice, and I would presume qualifying as well.
Yeah, might as well throw qualifying in on it.
And I have to ask this because, you know, you and I have had the opportunity to do this. We only see this on television when it comes to F1 because we haven't been to an F1 race yet. I say yet because that's the plan. That's on the bucket list, if you will. But whether we're on television or seeing it live, being behind them on pit road or near pit road, we have watched as NASCAR teams adjust the tire pressure of the Goodyear Eagles they're slapping on the stock cars. We actually did get the chance to see it at Barber over the last couple of years where those teams adjust the tire pressure of the Firestones before they go on the car. I got to admit, I don't think I've ever seen an F1 team adjust the tire pressure on those Pirellis.
Probably, I think they probably got those auto bleeders to where it'll bleed off to a certain pressure. As much as technology they have on that car can see everything, they probably got a way to where it can auto bleed off.
Okay, so it for just giggles of it and to overly simplify it, on race weekend, the teams buy the number of tires that they're allotted for that particular weekend. Doesn't matter whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, Goodyear, Firestone, Pirelli. At that point in time, Goodyear, Firestone, Pirelli officials, they're on site. They mount, they balance those tires, and then they mount and balance the tires, obviously, and put them up to the pressure that they initially want to set. And apparently Pirelli sets them at whatever the pressure is. I don't know. I'm just going to throw out a number just based upon my road car. Let's say it's 35 PSI. And then they give them to Ferrari and to Haas F1 and to Red Bull and to Racing Bulls and to Aston Martin and to all the other teams that are out there and go, here you go. And then that's it? They can't mess with it past that?
That's what it sounds like. Which is crazy. You should be able to adjust the tire pressure on a race car to what you like. Within a certain tolerance, obviously. You certainly don't want to, go to the point where you only got 5 PSI in the tire, knowing that it'll build because of the heat. But still, it seems like there should be a little bit of leeway, but apparently not. Right.
Racing Bulls, the aforementioned Racing Bulls, looking to improve their status in the points by apparently swinging for the fences at their home race this weekend. You go, wait a minute, home race? Yeah, Racing Bulls is technically based in Italy. Motorsport.com reports that they're bringing a number of big upgrades to the 2025 Racer for this weekend. For example, they have changed the entire floor pan. They've also brought 2 big aerodynamic bodywork changes, and they did not detail them. I noted this. They just apparently didn't want everybody to know. But, apparently it'll probably be pretty obvious if you watch the coverage tomorrow. They'll probably detail it a little bit better. Should also be noted that, however, several other teams are bringing upgrades. And here's the thing. This is that race where usually it happens. You've got a pretty good understanding of what your baseline is. You've run the early season opener in Australia, and then they went to China, and then they ran a couple more races over in the Asian continent. Came here to the United States. Now they're in Europe, and this is a pretty long swing that they're going to be running in and around Europe and racing. And it is generally right about here where all those teams say, okay, we've got the baseline. We know where we think we can improve. Here's the changes that we're bringing to bear. So it's not like Racing Bulls is the only team to bring changes, but it looks like they're bringing the biggest bodywork changes of all the teams. None of the other teams seem to have changed the bodywork for this week.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that way, in which just in the first round of qualifying just a few minutes ago, Yuki Tsunoda absolutely destroyed his car and flipped. So that's one Red Bull Racing Bull car that's out of commission for the rest of qualifying.
All right. Keep an eye on that. While Racing Bulls might be making the major changes, they're not the only changes. I don't know whether this will improve their fortunes. So far, it doesn't seem to be. Only time will tell on that. Plus, on top of that, patience is apparently pretty short. Team principal Laurent Mekies, who said that they're going to give the upgrades until the Spanish Grand Prix to see if they're the answer or not, added that if these are indeed a launch that is moving them up the standings, then they'll continue to work on the 2025 Racer. But if they feel like these upgrades didn't work, they're now going to punt, and they're going to start to look towards 2026. So in other words, this could be the final round of upgrades for the 2025 race car. Really?
Yeah.
3 races to tell. Spanish Grand Prix is the last weekend of this month, so you got this weekend at Imola, you got Monaco next weekend, and then, of course, you're going to do Spain on the last weekend of the month. So you got 3 races to figure out whether or not these things are going to work. Is that long enough, really? Is that a good enough is that a good enough run of races for you to be able to tell if it's really working?
It is not.
Especially when you consider one of them is Monaco, and Monaco is almost impossible to pass. If you don't start up near the front, you're going to have a bear of a time.
Yep, that is right.
All right, but that's what they say. They're willing to punt on 2025 and go ahead and look ahead to 2026. Okay, good luck on that one. The FIA has made another rule adjustment. I can't call it a change because it's really more of an adjustment. Apparently, they are listening to the drivers here. They've backed off that penalty that got instituted last year about the use of language in official media sessions. The drivers, some of the team principals, they've all been highly critical of the FIA in the wake of the penalties that were handed down to both Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc last year. Verstappen, obviously, was the man really kind of considered to have caused the FIA to create and then enforce the fines for use of, shall we say, questionable language. He was given the equivalent, by the way, being the first guy in with the infraction. They say, well, he got the equivalent of community service. On the other hand, Charles Leclerc, he was found in violation of it. He was hit with a €10,000 fine for his use of language at the Mexican Grand Prix last year. Well, just last month, FIA President Mohammed Ben Sulayem said that he'd been taking a closer look at some of the rules to see if there was room for, his word, not mine, improvement. One of those is, well, cutting the swear jar fine, and that's my words, not theirs, from 10,000 to 5,000 euros for each instance. Okay. Race stewards, by the way, say that they have the option to suspend said penalty if it is a team or a driver's first offense. Plus, the stewards are also being asked to differentiate between a quote-unquote controlled and non-controlled environment. Now, all this means basically is that the race stewards can waive it if it happens while the driver is in the car and doing 200 miles an hour down a straight. And that I understand. I mean, Here's the thing. We've warned everybody about this, and it doesn't matter what series you're talking about. if you're listening to a team radio, there's a real good chance that during the race, you're going to hear a lot of language that you don't want your 5-year-old kid to hear.
And that and then some.
Okay. On the other hand, if you're sitting in a pre-race media press conference or go to Thursday when the F1 drivers arrive there, or they're in the post-race press conference with the FIA officials and the media, that is a controlled environment, not an uncontrolled. This is a controlled environment. And this goes back to what I have talked about being in the broadcasting industry as long as I've been, understanding that everybody's got one of these, and I'm holding up my cell phone here for the people on the camera. Everybody's got one of these now. It's a smartphone, which has the ability to not only take video, but obviously take audio recordings. And it is in my best interest, it's in the interest really of everybody to understand that for all intents and purposes, there are cameras and microphones everywhere. And understanding that, you bring out your best behavior. And then on top of that, these 20 drivers know I've got a good chance of going into a post-race media session, which means I'm not behind the wheel of a car. I am sitting in street clothes, probably, and I'm sitting down in front of a microphone, or several, with a bunch of cameras on me from all different kinds of networks from all around the world. Why in the world can't you figure out that this is different from being behind the wheel of a car, and for just the span of 5 to, 15 minutes for a session, control your tongue and not utter words that are questionable for radio or I'll just say broadcast purposes?
I would agree.
I don't understand why they, the drivers, the team principals, can't understand you're in front of a camera with a microphone and you're talking to broadcast professionals. Act like it.
And there we are. That's right.
You want to, scream and curse a blue streak behind the wheel of a car because another driver did something stupid, by all means. When you're behind one of these, whether you got a camera on you or not, that's called control yourself. That's it.
Yep, self-control.
McLaren team principal Andrea Stella knows that with his team leading the Constructors' Cup and his drivers on top of the standings as well, that he's got a very big target on his back. And all the other teams seemingly are kind of petitioning the FIA to, inspect, shall we say, the MCL 39 racers that they're using this season a little bit closer. Find something wrong, please. That car and the drivers, they've won 5 of the races run so far this year, and while no formal protest has been lodged, again, the teams are making noise that McLaren just, can't be within the rules, right? Stella says he actually likes this. He says, quote, "For us, it's good news when our rivals get their focus, rather than on themselves, onto some of the aspects that are allegedly present in our car and are not even present. And certainly if they were, let's say, flexi wings, like the front wing deflection like everybody else, it has nothing to do with the reason why McLaren is very competitive. So I hope that in the future there's going to be more of these kinds of sagas, because that means that our rivals are continuing to focus on the wrong things. And this, for us, is just good news. It's just helping our quest." He's right. If you're concentrating more on what your competitors are doing versus what you need to be doing, you're not concentrating on the right stuff.
I would agree. You are correct.
Get your mind set right, boys and girls. If you want to compete with the people that are at the top, try and join them. Don't try and find something wrong with them. Try and see what you can do better. Welcome to competition. And congratulations to a man who's very familiar to U.S. audiences who watch the Sky Sports coverage of Formula One on ABC ESPN. His name, Martin Brundle. Man who created the grid walk in Formula One has been honored with the Order of the British Empire for his services to both motor racing, he was a driver, and sports broadcasting. He started doing interviews of drivers and team principals and sometimes celebrities, Megan Thee Stallion notwithstanding. As F1 grew in popularity back in 1997, he did when he first did it at that year's British Grand Prix. It's kind of become a common thing, not only in F1, but in NASCAR and IndyCar as well. Michael Waltrip, regardless of what you might think of him, he does it. We see it a lot, especially if you're at the racetrack and you see the driver introductions and all the stuff before they do the pre-race ceremonies of the invocation and stuff like that, you'll see, different people like at Talladega. It's Monica Palumbo, for example, who does a grid walk and has the chance to, talk to the driver for a couple of seconds beforehand. And it's just another way to kind of put a face to the name instead of having an anonymous helmet behind the wheel, right?
Right.
Okay. Congratulations to him. And this is basically the next step towards him being knighted. I mean, let's face it, that's pretty cool stuff. All right. One more thing here before we go, and that is our Fantasy League update. We didn't have the time last week to do Fantasy League. So let's kind of give a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at when it comes to how the Fantasy League is looking now since before Talladega.
As it stands right now, the overall standings, Junebug leads. You're sitting in second. Old Boom Slick is sitting in third. I'm sitting P4. Fire Chef P5. Chase is P6. Staceman P7. And John Myers sitting at P8 currently right now.
Now, we should also state that, John might be in last of those who were scored points, but John actually didn't really get involved until we were well into the season.
Right.
So he kind of started by him. Yeah, he started, behind the 8 ball on his own, but, he's plugging away at it, and you never know. If he gets a good weekend, could really be good for him. This weekend, a little bit different on some of the stuff, but for example, this is a non-points race. I forget. We're not worried about that particular fantasy league, so it's not going to change after this weekend, right?
Yeah, just running through real quick the winners of the last 3 races. I won Talladega.
Okay.
Texas winner, you won Texas.
Okay.
And the Kansas winner was Chase.
Okay. Congratulations to them. We're going to continue to play it. You, by the way, can get involved in it and check yourself on a weekly basis against us. Just go to NASCAR.com, Matt, and how do they go find us?
CRN Fantasy Live 2025 on the NASCAR Fantasy Live page.
There you go. All right, Matt, appreciate it. Have a great time up in North Wilkesboro. We'll see you in studio next week and look forward to a review, okay?
Will do.
All right, be careful. Have a good time on your travels there, Matt. Producer John, thank you very much. To all of our listeners, whether you're on 95.1 The Mountain, we appreciate it. And whether you're checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube or not, thank you very much. Our thoughts and our prayers continue to, by the way, to go out to Chi-Town Mark, one of our great CRN Live participants. He is in the hospital. We're praying for him, and you take care of that guy, and doctors take care of him too. We'll talk to you next week. Don't forget, got a Cross Flags episode coming up middle of the week as well. We'll talk to you next week right here on CRN. Thank you very much for joining us.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.